Hey guys, it's Gala Avary from the Video Archives podcast. While we're shuffling tapes and gearing up for season 2, Quentin and Roger have sent me on a mission all around Los Angeles and beyond to talk with filmmakers, photographers, VHS collectors, and other interesting characters. What are we going to be talking about? Well, that's up for my guests to decide. On the Gala show, guests have 30 minutes to talk about whatever topic they want you to know about. Filmmakers like Josh Miller will tell us how he found his tribe, while writers like Larry Karaszewski will let you know what he considers to be a true LA movie. VHS collectors like Connor Holt make an argument for the genre of pirate movies, while writers like Josh Olson are going to let us in on what he considers to be right-wing cinema. Actors like Percy Hines White will share his love of outsider art, while animators and cartoonist Sierra Nielli will reminisce on his experiences of growing up in a Philly pizza shop and how this time in his life influenced him to pick up a pencil. So, join me every Thursday for a new guest with an entirely new topic. The Gala show premieres October 26th. Available wherever you get your podcasts. On this episode of the Video Archives podcast, join Roger Avary and Quentin Tarantino as they fall deep into the stories of the Illustrated Man. Two tramps meet on the side of the road. One of their bodies is almost completely covered in tattoos.
They are not tattoos! They are skin illustrations!
Excuse me, skin illustrations. They'll discuss the differences between the book and the movie, an unexpected star in the form of a dog, and how a Rod Steiger performance elevates a film. Next up, Claude Chabrol's Dirty Hands. Another amazing Rod Steiger performance. Quentin and Roger refuse to ruin the ending of this film for you. With Hitchcockian connections and unexpected performances, you'll be happy you didn't get spoiled. Finishing up today's episode is Alfredo Zacarias' Demonoid, Messenger of Death. A woman and her husband unearth an ancient curse in the form of a demon that takes control of your left hand. With lots of gags and amazing effects, this film will keep you entertained from its explosive start to its fulfilling end. And here they are now. Here's Quentin Tarantino and Roger Avary.
Okay, thank you, everybody. This is Quentin Tarantino.
And Roger Avary.
And this is the Video Archives podcast. This episode, it's not officially a theme episode, even though our double feature has the same actor, and he's very demonstrative in both movies. It's almost hard to get past him. I'm not trying to get past him. He's terrific. But this is, without it officially being a theme episode, this is as close to a theme episode. And the theme is Rod Steiger. And the first movie that we're watching is The Illustrated Man.
1969,
science fiction classic based on the Ray Bradbury novel, starring Rod Steiger, his wife Claire Bloom, and Robert Dreyfuss.
Don't dare stare at the Illustrated Man. There are fearful pictures on his skin, but the most fearful thing is tattooed on his soul. The Illustrated Man, Ray Bradbury's masterpiece of the supernatural, an incredible journey to the outer limits of imagination. The Illustrated Man, starring Rod Steiger and Claire Bloom, from Warner Brothers 7 Arts in Technicolor. This picture is rated M.
And now playing exclusively at Pacific's Pickwood Theater in Wendy Westwood.
I actually saw this at the theater in 1969 when I was 7 years of age. I saw it because we saw a lot of movies back then, and they used to show the trailer a lot for The Illustrated Man at the theaters. I'm like, oh, I want to see that. That looks cool. I want to see The Illustrated Man. I want to see The Illustrated Man. So me and my mom and my stepfather, we went to see The Illustrated Man. Okay, but right now I'm going to read the back of the box. This is a Warner Home Video. We look to science fiction to glimpse the future, and no science fiction writer has more gripping or disturbing ability to make the future real than Ray Bradbury, the author whose works like Fahrenheit 451, The Martian Chronicles, and Something Wicked This Way Comes qualify him as one of the genre's supreme shapers. The Illustrated Man brings to the screen one of Bradbury's most terrifyingly imaginative visions, the story of a man whose very body paints pictures of horrors to come. Rod Steiger stars as Carl, a carnival roustabout and master weaver of tales whose skin has become almost entirely illustrated with freakishly vivid tattoos. Skin illustrations.
Skin illustrations.
There is a space on his torso, however, that remains untouched. Yet if one looks there long enough, the most powerful of all the illustrations appears: the future. Weaving stories within stories, The Illustrated Man begins when a young drifter, Robert Dreyfuss, meets Carl and becomes fixated by his multicolored tattoos to a degree that becomes alarming, for they reveal dark secrets of the past and 3 shocking depictions of the future. 2 playful children use a most ingenious toy to conjure up a surprise for their unsuspecting parents. Then, Carl becomes the lone survivor of an astronaut crew shipwrecked on a planet of eternal rain. Finally, as the end of the world approaches, parents plan for their own children's destruction. When the young man returns from his forays into the future, he finds that the most nightmarish vision of all is yet to be seen. It is his own destiny, about to unfold in the lethal future all too near. The Illustrated Man ingeniously heralds the multi-episode format that has once again proven irresistible in popular television programs like Amazing Stories and The Twilight Zone, with remarkable performances from Steiger and Claire Bloom and the awesome originality of Bradbury's genius. It will hold your attention as powerfully as its heroes' illustrations.
Never mind that Bradbury wasn't consulted on the screenplay.
Roger, since you are the biggest Bradbury fan in the room, I'm assuming, and have also even read the book and have been a fan of the movie for a long time, why don't you start? What did you think?
First off, the book is 18 short stories, very, very loosely held together by a very short prologue and a very short epilogue, like a half-page epilogue. And the rest of it is just these short stories. And you're just given the idea of these skin illustrations that move and squirm around on his body. And that when you look into them, you fall into it like some kind of Stendhal syndrome. Mm-hmm. And what you see is the future. And in general, I think most of the stories were futures. And most of them are like kind of almost dystopian ideas of futures and of human behavior in those times. Mm-hmm. They choose 3 stories out of these 18 stories. And I picked up...
let me ask you a question about that. Part of the thing about the movie is Rod Steiger is the Illustrated Man. He's got these tattoos on his body. It takes place in either like the 20s or the 30s. And he's a hobo. And he bumps into this other guy on the road who's like another hobo. And then they talk. You actually think that Rod Steiger is going to beat him to death.
Yeah.
You think he's just
a violent hobo.
You think he's going to get robbed and beaten to death, and
an LA hobo.
He takes off his shirt and he reveals all the illustrations that he has on him, and he starts kind of telling the story about how they all came to be.
People want to look at them.
But then Robert Dreyfuss will like look at the lion tattoo, or then look at the rocket tattoo, or then look at this tattoo. And then we just kind of go into these stories. And so the movie is basically, it's made up of these 3 stories, when it keeps coming back to this framing episode that is terrific.
Yeah. Between
Robert Dreyfuss and Rod Steiger. You've read the book. Do you think they picked the right 3 stories?
No. And in fact, well, yes. First of all, The Veldt, which is the first story in the book and the first story in the movie, which is basically a holodeck story. They choose The Veldt. They choose one called The Long Rain, which you mentioned, and then they choose one called The Last Night of the World. They use flavors from the other story to kind of create a greater framing for it, which is that the Illustrated Man has basically been tattooed by a witch, in the movie, and that
that's not in the book.
Not necessarily. It's the
whole witch woman thing.
Well, no, the woman is there. Her house disappeared. I think he saw her in Wisconsin, but she, it's vanished. He hasn't been able to find her again, and he is looking for her. All of that is in there. Like she went, and the house went with her. That's that's absolutely from the book. But they definitely make more of it. They make more of his relationship with her.
Well, that makes sense. Yeah. I mean, because that's making it a movie.
Okay, so I think The Veldt is absolutely the best story in the book. I think The Long Rain is a really, really great story. I even think The Last Night of the World is a good story, but when I was going through my original copy of the book, which is a Bantam.
By the way, I have that copy, and it's the exact same edition.
Yeah, this
is the exact same one.
I love this edition. However, the pages have yellowed enough where it's like actually super difficult to read unless under bright light. But I discovered that I had dog-eared a page in it. And so I was like, oh, what's that? And because I was looking through all the stories again, and I came upon 0 Hour. Which I had dog-eared because I remembered that was the story I wanted to tell. Like when I read this book, that's the one I wanted to make into a short movie.
Oh my God. You know what? I'm now having a memory of this years ago when we were younger. All right. You mentioning that you wanted to do one of the stories from the Illustrated Man.
And I figured out which one it is. It's called 0 Hour. But it's too close, I think, thematically to the Welt, and I'll tell you exactly why. 0 Hour is about, the kids are acting weird. Kids are acting strange, and the parents are trying to figure it out. And
you mean children all over?
Well, they're kids, but then they're behaving strangely. They're doing strange things. They're like acting. They're doing things in secret, and they're trying to figure it out. And what they basically realize in this kind of slow burn, they very gradually discover there's an alien invasion occurring and that the kids are part of it. They're helping the aliens because they all hate their parents. And the end is like the kids basically revealing to the aliens where the parents are hiding. And it's such a great thriller.
You mean like Village of the Damned kind of thing?
Yeah, well, I mean, the kids aren't evil. The kids have just all gotten together and decided, let's support the alien invasion. Yeah. Let's support 0 Hour. Like they're all kind of part of it. It's a great, great story. It's fantastic, but it's really, really close to the Welt. The Welt is a story about this futuristic home. A lot of changes were made to the book by Howard Kreitzik, who is he was a producer who became a writer. I looked him up. I wasn't really aware of his work. One of the things about the Welt story is these kids, they're living in this house that does everything for them. It wipes your ass. It feeds you. The table cut my dinner for me and fed it to me. Everything is done for them. And everything that they do, which are usually very nostalgic ideas, because it's Bradbury, it's 1920s, 1930s ideas like sitting on the porch, for example. The porch will rock the rocker for you. You don't have to rock it yourself. Everything is like that. And the whole gestalt of it is that the parents are just trying to do everything for their kids. Constantly, everything for their kids, and trying to give them everything that they want. And the whole story is almost a cautionary tale about overindulging children, because what effectively happens is they give them this nursery that can be anything. It can be Humpty Dumpty. It can be it can be nursery rhymes type stuff.
When they get it, okay, if the kids want to turn it into Wonderland from Alice in Wonderland.
They mention Alice in Wonderland.
Okay. That's easy enough for them to do. If they want to turn it into Big Rock Candy Mountain, they can do that. If they want to turn it into Teddy Bear Land, they can do that. But if they want to turn it into England during the bubonic plague, they can do that as well.
And that was never planned upon because no one ever thought that the children would be thinking about thoughts of death so intensely. And what the parents are hearing are familiar screams coming from the thing at night where the kids are playing in it. And they go down there, and what the kids are effectively doing is living again and again the fantasy of just killing their parents, having lions kill their parents in the African Welt.
Yeah, it's all taking place in the Serengeti. Yeah, and it just has these like wild lions out there. And then the basis of the start of the story in the movie is Rod Steiger and his wife looking at these lions and go, what the fuck are these kids doing? What's with all these lions and these horrible, terrible birds, these vultures? Why the hell are they hanging out here? And then they talk to the son about it. And
why would the kids want to be here?
Yeah. What's with these fucking lions?
Yeah. There is no psychologist.
It's all disturbing. Yeah.
There is no psychologist in the book. The parents are going to be going away. They're turning off the house and they're turning off the Welt. And that's just too much for the kids. And it ends in very much the same way.
This story started me off on the bad thing about how I felt about the movie.
Yeah, you had a technical problem.
Well, I had a bit, and it gets worse and worse and worse, all right, as it goes on, because
by technical, I mean a logistical problem.
Yeah, a logistical problem.
Which I actually tried to solve for you. You brought up to me the idea that this is just a projection. It's crystalline walls, and the all of which get painted with light, and it's so realistic, and it's such a realistic depiction down to the finest details of grass on the ground that you just believe that it is that.
Yeah.
I was using Star Trek as a way to explain why the lions could kill the parents in real life, as far as force fields and matter replication.
And
which is the excuse in Star Trek on how the holodeck works.
Yeah, but the thing about it is, if he wants a cup of coffee, it just materializes a cup, and you were using,
and that is not in the book.
Yeah. And you were using the materializing of the cup as the same thing as the lion. I go, well, no, it's not. I mean, I can maybe understand an inanimate object like a cup being developed, but something that moves and lives and can kill, that's not a coffee cup. I mean, like, for instance, when the kids take him to the jousting,
the medieval times.
The medieval times, all right? So I'm like, after you see the end of the movie, it's like, so any of those knights could just walk over with a broadsword and cut Rod Steiger's head off at any time, and the only reason that it doesn't happen is because no one ever thought about it? That doesn't make any fucking sense. I understand a hologram situation that's so compelling and a reality so compelling that lions attack you and you feel as if you have been torn apart by lions, and maybe you die of a heart attack because, or the excruciatingness of the pain, but there actually aren't lion claws and teeth ripping your skin apart.
In Star Trek, they have gone through great lengths to explain force fields.
Star Trek takes place 500 years in the fucking future. We're talking about this.
This also takes place 500 years in the future.
No, it's not for sure. That's not for sure. It's Star Trek's get out of jail free card for everything. Well, 1,000 years in the future, maybe it can happen. We're not playing the Star Trek
It's
game.
A sophisticated tractor beam matter replication. I think that's
but also, it doesn't even make sense. Exactly what you said about the idea that, why would you invent something that could create killers? I mean, literally in a situation
like television or cell phones.
It's not the same thing. I could go into the hologram and create an entire new Nazi Germany, and now they're there. All right.
I think there's an episode of Star Trek where they do that.
And now they enough of the fucking Star Trek.
Voyager.
Enough of the Star Trek references.
This is the source for the holodeck.
No one would ever make this and sell this commercially, or there would be something, somebody would have thought about that. But also even the idea, even as a learning tool, or like if the idea is you're teaching kids history and they want to see what it was like at the Battle of Little Bighorn, well, then they just conjure up the Battle of Little Bighorn and they can actually watch it.
Yeah, that's the idea.
But that suggests that it's not like Sitting Bull is dealing with the kids. The whole concept of like, well, nobody ever assumed that this would ever happen just does not work. Well, all right? The book especially if it's supposed to be a commercial thing that you sell and that people buy.
It's a very new device. They do establish that. But the real point of the story is about the dangers of leaving work to someone else. Mm-hmm. The dangers of letting your kids be raised by someone else. The dangers of just putting an iPad in your child's hand and thinking that it's all going to be fine and that they're not going to stumble across Pornhub or internet beheadings or like ghastly things that people shouldn't see. That, of course, they automatically seek out and do. There is a moment in the movie that is also not in the story. There's two moments. There's the one where he's talking to his kids about what it was like when he was young. Mm-hmm. I didn't ever get used to attach my pod to the energy flow and just fly away 1,500 miles. I was only allowed to go 100 miles. Mm-hmm. And he's talking like that. That actually doesn't exist in the book, his attempt. Nor does the moment when, and I'm trying to remember the name of the husband and wife. I guess it doesn't matter. George, I think is his name, something like that. The husband and wife, and she says, "Make love to me," and he answers, "Why?" Mm-hmm. And they've got this dysfunctional relationship because they're used to the machines doing everything. Mm-hmm. The implication that's being made in the movie, which isn't in the book, she's got machines to do that for her. Mm-hmm. Why do you want me to do it? And this is like they've fallen into a kind of apathy about everything. Mm-hmm. Really, the story is a cautionary tale against that. The movie attempts to make it more. I noticed
and then
that.
boil it down into a Twilight Zone kind of thing that has a gotcha ending.
Yeah. They attempt to do that, and sometimes Bradbury is not often the gotcha ending guy.
Mm-hmm.
He occasionally does a gotcha ending. In fact, 0 Hour, the story that I mentioned, does have a gotcha ending. It's kind of like a final scare moment at the end. But in The Last Night of the World, which is the final story in this one, the ethical conundrum is everyone in the world has had the same dream. We're all going to die. It's the last night of the world. Mm-hmm. And what are we going to do? And there's this kind of intellectual conversation. And then, as in the movie, the next morning comes and the world hasn't ended, but they've all conspired to kill their kids. Mm-hmm. The thing is, in the book, there is no morning. Mm-hmm. There is no waking up. There are no dead children at the end of it. There is the decision of what we're going to do. And then the understanding that this is the last night of the world. And then she comes to bed and she says, "Oh, I left the sink running. Oh, well." And they go to bed. Mm-hmm. And that's the end. Like, that's a very Bradbury style ending.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah.
It's like the world is ending and, well, the sink is running. But if the world's ending, it doesn't matter.
Who cares? Yeah.
And this is a very...
No, that sounds like a need. I could even see it on the page, actually.
Yeah, it's a very compelling story. I see why they had to do the twist, but I can also see why Bradbury would be upset a little bit at the movie, because these are the kind of thematic changes that they're making.
Any of my comments about the stories is not making a reference to Ray Bradbury's original short story.
Of course.
It's only to the movie.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, and you've not even, I don't think you've read.
No, I haven't. Like, I don't like the story, the Last Night on Earth, at all. The only thing that I kind of got a kick out of it, and it was ruined by the deadly way in which they did it, but at the very beginning, especially with that crazy set that they're on, at the very beginning when Rod Steiger goes to talk to Claire Bloom and talk about the end of the world, for all intents and purposes, it looked like the opening of a Superman movie. It looked like he was Jor-El, all right, coming in and talking to Susanna York and talking about how it's the end of planet Krypton. And he even looks like what you would imagine.
He's even dressed a little bit like a kind of Jor-El.
Yeah, he's not dressed like Marlon Brando, but you can imagine that's a version of Jor-El if Rod Steiger was playing Jor-El in Superman the movie.
Yeah.
My biggest problem with the third story is they fucking neuter him. It's so pretentious and it's so pious. It actually hurts his performance, as if that wig doesn't do it enough. All right. Just the piousness and the prissiness of the performance and of just the whole concept of that story is just a drag.
Bradbury is a very classy writer, and he writes about ideas and very classy ideas. And I can imagine trying to chase that, but it ends up becoming that third story, which is pretentious. It ends up coming across really pretentious.
Well, let me ask you a question. I think I'm going to know the answer to this. I've got no problem whatsoever about the idea that when they do the different stories, the three characters that we've met are playing the characters. I don't know if they pull that off as well as I've seen before, but like a movie that does that I really like, it's like the number one thing I like about it, is that independent horror film from the 70s, Screams of a Winter Night.
Yeah, sure.
Where all those kids get together to tell ghost stories, and then when you see the ghost stories, it's the kids.
Yeah.
That's the movie that actually pulled that off as well as I've ever seen anybody. It's the one thing about the movie that I like, but that actually really works. But I guess my question, though, is in the book, are they all just completely separate characters, or is there a link to Carl? Is there a link to Carl?
Not only is there not a link to Carl, there is very rarely a link back to the Illustrated Man and the framework of the story. Sometimes they'll put a little, in italics at the very end, and then he looked into the next tattoo, ... And then you're on to the next story. The few similarities that are there are not as threatening, not as thrilling, not as exciting. A lot of it is Rod Steiger bringing Rod Steiger to the show.
Look, I'm not a fan of the stories in the movie. I can't love more the first 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Just Rod Steiger, all right, as the Illustrated Man.
His performance is simply holding the entire movie together. It's incredible.
And what's really surprising is Robert Dreyfuss is very good in the first half. I've seen him in a few other things. He's in Only almost like a pre-Goodfellas Vegas movie from 1970 called Where It's At.
Oh, yeah.
With David Jansen and Brenda Vaccaro. And so he did a few things around this time, and I didn't think he was that good in that. But I thought he was extremely strong in the opening 20 minutes.
He's holding his own with Rod Steiger in the weaker of the two characters.
Well, he's definitely the weaker of the two characters, but actually that's the harder role. All right,
that's what I mean. It's way harder.
Yeah, playing the young boy ingenue. All right, against this raving Rod Steiger. The movie turns against him because once he becomes obsessed with the woman, the performance isn't as good. It's not really his fault. It's just they make the character nutty, and it's just I'm not buying it. But the opening 20 minutes of Steiger's character and his fantastic dialogue. In the last few years, I've tried to watch The Illustrated Man again, and I could never get past that 20 minutes. Because every time it got to the lion story, I was like, I'm just not that interested. And so one of the reasons I chose the film, because I knew you had an affection for it, is I wanted to have an excuse
to forcibly sit through
sit through.
You got it.
And I realized that I was exactly right all this time. I'm glad that I actually saw the film all the way to the end, but I was right. And you know what? I don't give a damn about all that other shit, but that 20 minutes is so good. Rod Steiger was a leading man at that time in this. I'm a great, intense actor, and so everything was about him being this. You went and saw a movie starring Rod Steiger. The point was to see an intense performance.
Yeah.
Whether it's his homosexual military drill sergeant in The Sergeant, or it's his serial killer in No Way to Trade a Lady, also directed by Jack Smite. So he was doing a lot of kind of roles like this. I think this is his most successful. This is his leading man role. The first 5 minutes of that scene, Rod Steiger is the scariest hobo I've ever seen in a movie.
I don't like bugs, frogs, and spiders and creepy crawly things that zing out and bite you when you're not looking.
If you came across that guy hoboing, I would be fucking terrified.
Yeah, I would too. And he's a hulking man.
Yeah.
And Robert Dreyfuss looks like who always has that kind of sweaty, handsome look. I don't know how else to describe it. He's like shiny guy.
I'll do Rod Steiger, and you be Robert Dreyfuss, and just say, hey, those are some pretty neat tattoos.
Hey, those are some nice tattoos you got there.
These are not tattoos. They're skin illustrations. Don't you ever call them tattoos again to me. And don't make me tell you again.
Get in your bag, Peek. Can I also just call out to the dog?
Oh, the dog, yeah.
So that's another thing about those scenes is they are made semi-insane by the introduction of that dog.
His name is Peek, as in Pekingese.
Yeah.
But actually it's a pomegranate.
He's a bum.
Like me.
Like me with two bums.
It is so much fun watching Rod Steiger.
You keep him in the back. He likes it in the back. He likes it hot.
He likes it hot.
I like it hot. He likes it hot.
Yeah, that's totally Rod Steiger, and he's great in it. But for
the rest of my life, anytime somebody says the word tattoo,
no, you're gonna say that skin.
They are not tattoos. They are skin illustrations.
The thing is, by the end of the movie, and like I'm just gonna do a little spoiler here. By the end of the movie, like he's fallen in love with her or something. They're trying to create something that just is false.
Yeah. And it feels false.
And it feels false, and it doesn't exist, and it's not in the book, and you don't need it in the book.
And you're wondering why the kid's hanging around. I mean, it seems like they've been there all day.
In the book, it's like reading a comic book or a novel that you love. You look into one and it tells you a story, and then you can't stop. And they're beckoning you, and you just go from one to the other. And he just travels from one to the other through this long night until there's only one space left, which is the empty space, the empty spot, in which you don't just see the future, as the box says, you see your own future. And some people don't like what they see when they look in there.
And then all of a sudden they don't like me.
Yeah, they don't like me.
And now they don't want me around.
Yeah, that's exactly what it's like. It's totally that like.
Just talking about Rod Steiger again is making this movie get better and better and better, and it's just rising and rising and rising. And like I said, even if it's only those first 20 minutes are fucking fantastic. fantastic. I could watch that every week. I could watch the first 20 minutes of this movie every fucking week. The thing that we haven't talked about is the second story.
The Long Rain.
The Long Rain, which is about a spaceship that crashes on this planet where it's perpetual rain. So bad that this crew is lost, and they're trying to find a sun dome, but they just having to exist in this rain with this maniacal leader leading them on. But actually, he's maniacal, but he's probably the only one who he's the sergeant who knows how to keep them alive.
So hard. They've been out for days and days and days, and it is just pouring rain. There's nowhere to hide from the rain.
They can't wear their helmets because that'll make them go deaf because of the sound of it. But even if they hide in the trees, it's like the sound is just too deafening.
In the book, they describe like if you try to lay down and sleep, it's like the moss and the algae or whatever it is on the ground kind of grabs you and holds you. It's like 1,000 hands holding you, and so they just like they freak out and you can't feel your hands and face because they've been pelted by rain for so many days.
I mean, look, here's the thing about that. If I ever read The Illustrated Man, that'll be the story I read.
Yeah.
I bet you that story is terrific.
It's only 12 pages long. You can do it.
No, but here's the thing, though. It's a very wild, out there idea, a challenging idea, shot very conventionally.
Yeah.
Now, in a strange way, that rain story, that can't be worked out good in a film. I mean, it's too boring. It's too oppressive. It's not cinematic. It's a great idea. A comic book could be done out of it. That would be fantastic. Even a radio play could be done out of it. That's fantastic. But one of the things, though, look, I got to say, I'd forgotten about this image, but this image has been in my head forever, but it was trapped. And then I saw the movie, it brought it up again. When they shoot the body to get rid of it and all that mud just kind of comes out of nowhere and just swallows it up. That was one of the wildest images I think I had ever seen at that point of time. And I had forgotten it until we watched it the other day.
It was pretty wild looking at it the other night as well.
Yeah, it was.
That was what I read into it when I looked at that is he's shot him, he's killed him. And when the minute he falls to the ground, all the algae and stuff is like, it's kind of how I read into it. That it's the planet itself like going crazy.
Well, it looks like
consuming him.
It looks like it's a combination of like you shoot the body and it kind of dissolves in a foam that is now mixed with the algae
like
and the mud
foam.
and everything. And
it was weird.
Yeah.
You know, the book takes place on Venus.
They needed to do it one more time, though. They really needed to do it one more time so you would have a sense of what that fucking was.
Well, when Robert Dreyfuss, is going to kill himself.
Well, I kept waiting for it. I wanted to see him do it to see if that would have happened again. Yeah. The Long Rain didn't have a got you ending. Unless it's supposed to be cynical, he's fine. It's a happy ending.
It's a happy ending. It's a happy ending in the book as well, but there's an interesting change.
Happy is too strong a word, but
it's an ending.
Yeah.
There is a thematic choice that was made again by the writer, the screenwriter. He turns the entire push. We are on the Rangoon Death March or whatever it is. We are going to find the Sun Dome. And you've got one guy insisting that we keep marching. And when you find a broken sun dome, we're going to go to the next one. And everyone else is giving up. But this is the guy that's pushing them forward. Rod Steiger.
Yeah.
He is yelling you forward. He is forcing you to move. Everyone else is giving up. And there comes a moment when Robert Dreyfuss and him are talking, and suddenly he says, don't you want to go to the Sun Dome? You're going to get into that sun. You're going to look at that beautiful sun. You're going to get a cup of hot cocoa.
You get a Sun Dome whore.
And you're going to get some Sun Dome whores. We're going to get us some Sun Dome whores. And he's like, Robert Dreyfuss's character says, you think that I'm the kind of man that wants that? And suddenly you realize he's basically saying, look, I'm gay. I don't need to go to a whorehouse. Bradbury doesn't do that at all. You don't get to the Sun Dome. There is no woman there to put a bathrobe on you and to take your wet clothes off.
I actually thought Steiger's speech about the Sun Dome was the best the dialogue got after the first 20 minutes.
Oh, for sure. It's great dialogue. His whole thing about like, are we going to go to that Sun Dome? In the book, they're actually on Venus. And they've been on Venus, and Venus sucks. They're at war. The Sun Domes are military bases protected by guns to protect them from the Venusians who come up out of the sea every now and then to drag people away. Well, and they go to that broken Sun Dome. They're like, hey, what happened to all the people? Where are the bodies? They're like, oh, those Venusians. They dragged them back underwater, back into the sea.
Well, you're making it sound like that actually sounds less interesting than the movie, because the movie, you don't know what planet it is, but it's just a planet where it rains all the time. All right. If it's called the long rain, then that means it's Venus. Then maybe Venus doesn't rain all the time. It's just a long rain going on. I like the idea that it's a planet where it just rains constantly.
Well, I think he sets up Venus rains constantly. This is Venus.
Okay.
And but these are military bases. And when he goes into it, when he finally gets there alone and he enters into it, and there's the hot cocoa and there's the place to put your wet clothes and everything. There's a bunch of guys, a bunch of dudes there. It's the military, basically.
Yeah.
He's gotten back to the base.
No. I mean, look, this is basically, it's World War II. You're in the North African desert.
Sure.
You're in a tank. The tank breaks down. And now you and your 4 compatriots are just stuck in the middle of the fucking Gobi Desert.
Yeah.
And you've lost your compass.
You've got to find the equivalent of whatever a snow hut is.
Yeah,
the oasis. You've got to find the oasis.
You have to find an oasis or a military fort. You lost your bearings, and you've got an officer who is going to get you through this alive.
Yeah, this could have been a Foreign Legion story.
It absolutely could be, yeah.
And he even says, when they get to the broken one, he's like, well, once Congress gets around to it, approving it, they'll come and repair this, but it's going to be too late for us. It's like that's Bradbury's one little commentary in the middle of all of it.
Well, let me talk about how when I saw this. Okay, so I thought this trailer looked fucking amazing. I even knew who Rod Steiger was when I was 7 because I'd seen In the Heat of the Night. We go see the film, and I'm watching it, and that first 20 minutes is going on, and I'm liking it. And then it starts with the lion story. And now it's like in the future, and it's still Rod Steiger.
See, even back then, Quentin wants hillbillies and hobos, and in the 30s, he doesn't want to be in the future.
I'm not quite sophisticated enough at 7 to think that Rod Steiger is just playing another character in the story, all right? It looks like, what? Is this a flashback? I mean, I knew what flashbacks was. Is this a flashback? But why is this flashback taking place on a spaceship?
Yeah.
And what are the lions doing on a space? I mean, I'm 7, all right? And I'm trying to put it together. And then I fell asleep. And then I wake up and the lions are eating them. And then it's Rod Steiger as the illustrated man and Robert Driver's skin. And then I fall asleep again. And every time I wake up, I'm in the middle of something else.
Some other movie.
I have no idea where I am. So I wake up again and I'm in the middle of some fucking rain with these soldiers. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And then I fall asleep again. And then I wake up, and every time I woke up, I had no idea where I was. I went back to sleep until I finally woke up for the closing bit. So I've remembered the closing bit my entire life. Okay, so let me read Michael Weldon's review.
Yeah, I've got a quote from Vincent Canby here as well.
Okay, you want to start with your Vincent
Sure, mine
Canby
is
quote?
very short because I just thought it was funny. Because the film was something of a critical disappointment. But Vincent Canby wrote for the New York Times, everything remains fetus-like and underdeveloped, although shrouded in misty pretensions of grandeur. I think all of that is true, but I actually kind of don't mind it. I still sort of, Rod Steiger's so good. I love science fiction so much.
He's so good at it. Okay, so Michael Weldon of the Psychotronic Encyclopedia of Film writes, most reviewers blasted this adaptation of 3 famous Ray Bradbury stories. Rod Steiger and Claire Bloom star in all 3 stories. In the connecting segments, set in 1933, Steiger is the tattooed man and Claire Bloom is the mysterious tattoo artist from the future. The Long Rain episode is great. It even features Jason Evers from The Brain That Wouldn't Die. The Veldt and Last Night of the World are the other stories.
Just laying it out. And ultimately the real problem is that the screenwriter is attempting to tie it all together and have these stories connect
to turn it into a movie.
But the fact of the matter is these stories are not connected with each other. They are just disconnected short stories.
Well, Ray Bradbury is known for taking a bunch of random short stories he did,
doing a collage
and jerry-rigging them into a novel.
Yeah, Martian Chronicles.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
but that's why it was really bizarre, because in the Martian Chronicles, they're not that random though. They all have Martians in them. They all paint a mosaic.
He wrote a lot about Venus and Mars. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. But the Martian Chronicles, I think, creates a mosaic with Martians in it to some degree, where
it tells the story of human history traveling to and from Mars.
So I expected it to be more thematic connection between the stories and the wraparound story. And then that was one of the things when we were watching it, at a certain point, I was like, well, this is just fucking Night Gallery.
Yeah.
And you go, no, it's exactly Night Gallery.
Not that there's anything wrong with Night Gallery. I love Night Gallery.
I know, but I just didn't expect something so bloody random.
Yeah, with a kind of Stendhal syndrome, as part of it.
Have you ever wondered what the lead singer of Smash Mouth, Zach Goody, feels about new versus old guys in music and cinema? Or how photographer Toasty Cakes makes his cinematic discoveries? What about the opinion of Rotten Tomatoes editor Jacqueline Coley and what she considers to be the new Hollywood shift of the streaming era? Join me, reporter on the beat Gala Avary, as I get to the bottom of these very questions. Starting on October 26th, I have a new guest on the mic every week. Yes, every Thursday, hear your favorite filmmakers, photographers, actors, models, and more talk about a topic that is near and dear to their heart that they want you to know about. You'd be surprised at what people are interested in. The Gala Show premieres October 26th with new episodes every Thursday, available wherever you get your podcasts.
And we're back, and we're joined by the lovely Gala, who's here to give us her perspective on the different movies, in this case, Illustrated Man. But also, she also serves a function because Gala, like the rest of you out there, does not have access to the Video Archives collection the way myself and Roger do. So it's her job to track down the movies as best she can on her own.
Like you have to.
If she's successful in this endeavor, then she can point you a roadmap to how you can watch the different films. I have a secret ambition, which is to thwart her in this and come up with stuff that's so obscure that she cannot find it at all. That's my endeavor in this process. And now I turn it over to Gala Avary. Hello, Gala.
Hey, Quentin, you may succeed in your quest one day, but definitely not on Illustrated Man, because you can find this pretty much everywhere, you guys. I agree with you guys. I think that the book ending or the first 20 minutes is the best. Mm-hmm. It has the snappiest dialogue. Rod Steiger is really funny in it. Mm-hmm. Like the Peek, his dog, and the fact that it's in a bag and he's like, oh, he likes it hot, just like I like it hot. And that moment I was like, okay, I'm liking this. But then it gets into the Velt. And okay, I've never read the book because in 2007 or 2008, my dad bought me a copy and then someone at my school stole it from my backpack. So to whoever out there stole my Illustrated Man book, I'm glad you have it, but I don't now. So I've never read the story, but everyone...
And I won't loan you mine.
And he won't loan me his, so I'm out of luck.
You'll damage the spine. No, I'm kidding.
But
you'll crack it.
Yeah.
Everyone I know has read the Velt, and everyone I know has actually seen this segment of the Illustrated Man in class. Mm-hmm. They actually just played the Velt segment. For me, yeah, it's like fun. It's like whatever. I mean, I had some of the same problems Quentin did with.
But
like,
you're a Star Trek fan.
But I'm a Star Trek fan.
So you understand the mechanics of the holodeck.
In my brain,
whereas
the safeties are off. The safeties are off. But
safeties are off.
This is the thing, Quentin, is that the Velt creates things based on your emotions. So you generate your own reality. Now, in this world, no one has negative emotions. They have no emotions at all. So something negative like this should never be generated by the children because no one has any of these emotions.
That's true. And that is a point that's made in the book.
And
a little bit.
That's the thing is that everyone's numb to everything. Everyone's doing nothing. So that's maybe the only thing that I would think would explain the fact of why they've magically created these lions and have been just like playing this thing over in their head is that children aren't supposed to have negative emotions, but they do.
Okay. Maybe the kids aren't supposed to have negative emotions and they conjure up the lions. Okay, I'll go with that. But you're still talking about lion claws, and real lion teeth ripping
this
real
is never going to work. This argument will never work with Quentin.
No, and also the thing is, though, is that Ray Bradbury just loves lions. If you look through a lot of his stories, that's true. If you look through a lot of his stories, there are lions everywhere. I don't know what it is about Ray Bradbury loving lions and hating children, but it's there. It's just that's what exists.
And by the way, Ray
Bradbury doesn't hate children. I'm just going to say that as a
okay. I retract my statement. Ray Bradbury does not hate children. He's
compassionate towards the internal fear of children in an adult world.
actually how malevolent he presents them. I actually like that aspect of it. I like kids when they're presented.
That little kid is fantastic.
I don't buy it when they set kids up evil, but I like it when they set them up malevolence.
Yeah,
That little malevolent boy was fantastic.
Yeah, he was not bad. One of the design things in the movie, the design thing in the movie I liked is I loved Rod Steiger's tattoo makeup. I mean, it was fantastic.
And actually, props to Rod Steiger for being a hefty guy and going naked, or at least, naked enough to be walking around like,
he was pretty naked in that one scene where he's on the bed with her, like where he's like literally laying naked.
No, and it's his wife, so he feels comfortable doing it.
Yeah,
and,
but the designs are fantastic. I mean, the tattoo I'll remember forever is the lion tattoo.
Yeah.
All right, because I mean, to such a degree, I'm almost surprised. It actually kind of looks better, but it actually almost kind of looks like that 70s version of the lion that MGM used, like the lion that's in the logo for MGM on 2001.
Yeah.
That kind of 70s lion as opposed to Leo.
Yeah, exactly.
It has a Warner 7 Arts version of the MGM lion.
It's like the one that lives on in Vegas now.
Yeah.
It's funny. You just reminded me because you were talking about the first tattoo, or one of the first tattoos. I think it's the lion is like
the lion is the first. Well, the first
one.
one.
The second one. The rose is the first one. And
the rose is the first one.
And what's interesting is there's a moment in the book that is completely lost that Jack Smite really dropped the ball on, frankly, where it's the first tattoo that he sees because he's wearing clothes. He opens his hand and shows him the rose, and for a moment he thinks it's a real rose, and he reaches to pick it up. But then he doesn't because it's a tattoo.
Oh, wow.
And this could have been achieved. He could have actually held out a rose, and then when he reached for it, it could have been a tattoo. We could have done that.
Yeah, that would have been a nice bit.
And that would have been a way to show these things are real. They feel real. And that's in the book. Like, that is the first page of the book.
Oh,
that's there.
I agree. That would have been a nice bit.
And it's a directorial cue.
Yeah.
Yeah. Second story for me, boring. I have nothing to say about it, to be honest. Third story is okay, but I'm really confused as to why all the men in the world are getting together and agreeing upon the world is going to end. We all have the same. And I actually didn't think they had a dream. I thought they had a vision. Like, we all believe. Like, we have a dream that the world is going to end.
So you thought it was like the real world?
I thought it was like, I thought, no, because they talk about back when that other thing happened. And he's like, yes, back when the gas clouds came and it was so heavy that only the people on the top survived. So I thought they were like literally just like, felt like, okay, it's time for the world to end. We're all going to agree to have the world end.
It comes across like that. I'll tell you in the book, because that actually concerned me. I was like, that's interesting. Is that what Bradbury's saying? Is that all the men have gotten together and made this decision? But in the book, he tells the wife, we've all gotten, this happened. And all the men thought this. And she's like, well, all of the women did too. We've all had the dream.
Yeah,
and so they make a point that in the book, everybody has had this dream. So there's like a consensus among everyone, but there isn't this kind of twist at the end of the.
Yeah. And I kind of like the twist that like the world really isn't ending and you've just sacrificed the most important thing. So basically her world has ended because her children are dead, but the world itself hasn't ended. Yeah. I did like that in the movie.
Yeah.
Anyway, my VHS copy cost me $12.98. It is a Warner Brothers copy. It is not a beautiful clamshell like you have over there. It's just a cardboard thing.
Although I have to say that's a kind of an odd Warner Brothers. Is that one that's been cut up and put into a box, or is that one that was made specifically for a library?
No. It was. This is one of the.
Or did they move to a different style at a?
No, this isn't one of the Eddie Brandt's tapes. So. They made everything smaller by the time they got 7,000 video cassettes. They started making everything as small as they possibly could.
Yeah.
But this one actually held up pretty good.
Yes.
Because it looks like it was intended to be in that case.
So. No, you can see what they did is they sliced it right here.
Yeah.
But this fits better than they normally do when they do it this way.
And they did a good job.
Yeah,
they did a good job.
And in the Video Archives book, we have that Video Archives bought a tape for $69.99.
Yeah, $69.99. It was
a little bit more expensive than yours.
Yeah.
A lot more expensive than mine.
And we're back, and we're on to the second film of our Rod Steiger double feature, and that is the French film Claude Chabrol's Dirty Hands.
1975.
Starring Rod Steiger and Romy Schneider. The video is one of the great Wizard videos, which is one of the subsidiary companies of media This one also run by Charles Band, and I'm a big Wizard video fan. I'm very excited that we're having our first Wizard video.
Charlie Band, who I used to work for.
Yes, yes. The director of Transfers,
Yeah.
amongst other things.
That's right. I was his projectionist.
But that's one of the interesting things about Dirty Hands is a lot of Chabrol's movies at this time were released in French and played the Laemmle art house circuits. But this one didn't get picked up in 1975, but then later it got picked up by New Line Cinema, back when they were an exploitation company, where their most famous titles were The Street Fighter and Pink Flamingos.
Yeah.
And so they picked up Dirty Hands and, more or less released it as an exploitation film.
Yeah. Let's get rid of that French title and just call it Dirty Hands.
I bet you, I'm sure the French title is probably just the...
Les Innocents au Mains Sales, which is the innocence of the dirty hands.
The thing that's interesting about New Line picking it up, that bodes well for the movie to some degree, because it makes it sound like it's not going to be a boring art film thriller because an exploitation company picked it up. If they picked it up, then they felt that there was something about it that they could play in grindhouses and they could play in drive-ins, and it would actually entertain the audience. The storyline is as classic as if ripped from the pages of James N. Cain. I'll read the back of the Vestron video box. Rod Steiger and Romy Schneider star in a story of love, lust, murder, and double revenge with a bizarre twist. A beautiful, sensuous woman, Romy Schneider, is torn between her older husband, Rod Steiger, and a younger lover. Somebody's going to end up with dirty hands. Her lover, an ambitious writer, convinces Romy to murder her husband in his sleep. Deadly weapons, missing bodies, and murder victims who return very much alive complicate this cunning, complex, and convoluted plot. When you lie to the police, keep your story straight. If it doesn't gel, it isn't aspect. Blackmail, extortion, extracted confessions, forced love, deception, and deceit are woven into a tapestry of care. Pulsating paranoia traps you in a web of intrigue from which there is no escape. Who will survive? The spider or the fly? Running time, 102 minutes.
It doesn't gel. It's not aspic. That's something.
That's what made me laugh. Like, oh, wait, that's somebody was like having fun.
Yeah, someone.
And it's got a fantastic tagline: how Romy Schneider solved Rod Steiger's sexual problem permanently. Let me talk a little bit about Claude Chabrol, about who he is. He's known more or less as the French Hitchcock. He was part of the Collège de Cinema crowd. He's done all kinds of movies, but he became famous for doing a whole series of thrillers, usually starring his wife, Stéphanie André. La Femme Infidèle is one of his most famous ones. And then there's This Man Must Die. And there's a few of them. One of the jokes about Claude Chabrol's movies, and this fits right into it, is in a Claude Chabrol world, there's no such thing as divorce. When you're tired of your husband or you're tired of your wife, you just plot the perfect murder. No one believes in divorce in a Chabrol film. Now, the thing about it is, I don't love his thrillers. I've liked some of his other movies. I mean, the Story of a Woman with Isabelle Huppert playing the black market abortionist during Vichy France is fantastic. It's terrific. I don't care for his thrillers. Now, his thrillers are drastically better than the abysmal Truffaut Hitchcock movies, which I think are just awful. Look, I'm not a Truffaut fan that much anyway. I mean, like, there are some exceptions, the main exception being The Story of Adele H. But for the most part, I feel about Truffaut like I feel about Ed Wood. I think he's a very passionate, bumbling amateur. Chabrol is not a bumbling amateur, but I'm sure if I were to ask Brian De Palma what's he think of a Claude Chabrol movie, he would go, oh, yeah, the guy who makes those thrillless thrillers. Using that as an example, though, Dirty Hands is the best of all the Chabrol thrillers I've ever seen. I really, really enjoyed it. I really got a kick out of it. Like I said, as if ripped from the pages of James N. Cain, the whole story is, it's the Postman Always Rings Twice story.
Yeah.
Younger woman is married to an older guy. The guy's impotent and he's become a self-lacerating drunk. And then she meets a young hot stud lover who's a writer. And then they start having this affair. He's the husband's a cuckold, but he's so boozy. You don't know if he even knows or cares or what's going on, until finally they just decide, as these couples usually do, that life would be a whole lot better without this dude. And so they start planning his murder. And then that is pretty much the first half of the story. Now, I'm going to draw a line on here. This is one I don't think we should talk anything about the second half of the movie.
I agree. I agree. This is
it's like the setup is really good. That's what the setup was, what I knew, and everything else it wants to do with its story all happens in the second half.
Yeah.
I am not a fan of directors using obvious Freudian imagery to get across psychological points. And this movie has a whopper of one right at the beginning, because the whole point of the movie is that Rod Steiger is impotent and he's got this hot pants, beautiful wife that he can't satisfy.
Romy Schneider's his wife.
Yeah. That he can't satisfy. She meets her young lover when she's like laying on her front lawn, nude sunbathing. The lover is flying a kite, and then the kite kind of just falls out of the air and lands on her naked body, and he goes to collect his kite.
Yeah. And it's a kite of a predator bird.
Yeah. But now that's a neat shot. The idea of the kite landing on her pretty derrière. Yeah. All right. As she's
naked body.
As she's saying, well, it especially lands on her ass.
Yeah.
The young lover flies a kite, because you can get it up, get it. You can get it up, you can get it up, get it.
Every day, as long as there's a little wind. And if there's no wind, he just has to run a little.
Yeah, and Rod Steiger's not flying kites.
No.
But Rod Steiger is almost as great in this movie as he was in The Illustrated Man.
He's percolating in this film.
Just the moment when he enters the room, and his wife and the young stud are sitting there talking. I'm going to have a drink. My wife doesn't like me to drink, do you? It's
such a Rod Steiger moment.
It's just such a Rod Steiger moment. Now, I think I would have liked that moment normally any old time. But the fact that it's happening after we saw Illustrated Man just made it all the better.
Yeah.
Now, the first 3/4 of the movie was terrific. Just terrific. The script was fantastic. I loved everything about it. In the last third, too many characters that have supposedly died keep showing up alive. And that always really bugs me at a certain point. That actually happens another time in the movie, but I went with it. But then they double dipped.
Yeah.
And they did it too much. And then it even has a situation at the end that is one of those things that I really can't stand, where it seems like all the characters we've met all at one point in time start showing up in the room with guns and pointing them at everybody. However, having said that, I was invested in Rod Steiger and Romy Schneider's relationship. And it's an interesting thing because we know he's sincere, but we don't know if she's sincere. And we won't know if she's sincere until pretty much the last scene of the movie. Now that I love.
Yeah.
I love when you don't know where a character is coming from and you wait the whole thing and then eventually it's revealed. And even though I don't like the plot machinations in the last 20 minutes, her fight with the villain in the climax is terrific. It's a very violent scene and it's riveting. And also it's in that scene that she reveals her true motives.
My favorite moment in this movie and my favorite performance in this movie, which kind of jumped out of nowhere almost. And
I haven't even brought him up. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, because the movie is so slick and well-paced and kind of gripping in its early part. And then suddenly Jean Rochefort shows up playing Albert Legal, which is Albert Legal.
Yeah.
Is his name, who is an attorney.
Yeah, it's like, like in Postman Always Rings Twice, the husband's murdered and she's like in trouble. All right, she's got to survive the investigation.
She gets this attorney who gives
one of the
most realistic attorney moments because he's sparring and trying to figure out what's going to work.
Well, again,
like he's amazing.
Well, again, it's Postman Always Rings Twice.
Yeah.
It's the same thing as Hume Cronin's character showing up, the magnificent lawyer, or Michael Lerner in the remake, the magnificent lawyer that gets her off because he's just, he ties everything into knots.
Even the judge isn't sure, but he has an answer for everything, and he's kind of coming up with things. And he turns to her and he's like, "Isn't that what you told me earlier?" And how it happened?
It is a great special guest star turn.
Yeah, and
where a superstar comes in, has 2 scenes, and knocks it out of the fucking park. Shows up the leads.
Yeah, suddenly Peter Sellers is there, and you're in Lolita, and you didn't ask for him, but nevertheless, there he is.
No, it's like
suddenly,
this is like when De Niro does those little, does those special guest star roles, and he has 2 scenes and comes in there and kicks ass and turns the whole tables over.
Yeah,
or Al Pacino or somebody like that. Yeah. Now we're talking about these really volatile guys, and Jean Rochefort is the opposite of all that, but he still has that movie star charm. He knows what he has. He knows the scenes are built for him, and he just kills it.
He owns that scene and creates like a magnificent scene out of it.
Right when Rod Steiger leaves the movie, right when we need somebody like that, right when we absolutely need somebody like that, they give it to us.
Yeah.
And I'm liking this movie even more now we talk about it. I have to say, I think Claude Chabrol knew exactly what he was doing with this movie in a way that I don't feel about his other genre-based films.
Well, what I find super amazing is that Claude Chabrol made 3 movies that year, and they're all basically the same. I mean, they're not the same, but they're all these kind of slick thrillers, and I haven't seen the other 2.
What are the other 2?
Death Right, which was originally called Le Magicien, with Franco Nero and Jean Rochefort.
No, I've never heard of that one.
And then he did Pleasure Party, Un Party de Plaisir, which is about a couple that tries swinging with disastrous results. And I was not ever a big Claude Chabrol fan. I mean, I kind of felt a little bit like you did, I think, sort of the Hitchcock thing. But for my money, Clouseau is the Hitchcock of France. And so I never really bought that. But then I saw this movie, and I was like, wow, this was like a really gripping thriller. This was like a really beautifully shot
Also, by the
thriller.
way, I just got to say, this video cassette transfer on Wizard Video is fantastic. It's solid.
It's
the
vivid.
Colors are great. I mean, I actually think of all the movies we've done on this show since we started, this has the best photography.
Yeah, in fact,
it's just so rich in that 70s film way. You can feel the emotion. You can feel the emotion in it. You can feel the balanced colors. You can feel the warmth of the color timing.
I have to tell you, I was getting, I think I even told you, I was getting kind of a little bit of a Verhoeven feel when Verhoeven did Basic Instinct. Okay, I'm not a big fan of Basic Instinct. I do like Verhoeven, but I'm not a big fan of Basic Instinct. But it's that it was that slick, very well produced, just European enough. It plays like a Hollywood thriller. It plays like a clean, tight.
Well, it doesn't quite play
thriller.
like a Hollywood thriller. It doesn't play like Coma or the Bedroom Window or something.
I just meant that it was tight.
Yeah.
It was tight.
But those. It plays like a French film, but tighter and more entertaining than most of the French genre experiments.
Yeah. And plus you're in Saint-Tropez, like even like he buys her a car. Rod Steiger buys his wife a car because that's that's what he can do for her.
He can give her a stick shift.
Yeah. And it's like a Datsun, but in the south of France at that time, that Datsun was the cool car to have. Like that's a super cool car to have back then. And like Romy Schneider is just so fashionable and she's like, naked in the beginning and with the kite and
I'm not the biggest Romy Schneider fan. She's obviously a good actress, but there's a collection of films that she did and there's a collection of films that Catherine Deneuve did, and I've just always enjoyed Catherine Deneuve's movies more. I think there's there definitely is an Ice Queen quality to Romy Schneider to some degree. But in this one, she uses the Ice Queen quality really well to her effect.
Yeah, Sharon Stone would have been in the remake of this.
Yeah, I think, she would have been. She would have been, except Sharon Stone isn't as opaque as Romy Schneider is, and it's the opaque quality, the fact that I have to watch the movie all the way to the end to find out what she really feels. Yeah. But that's part of the quality, that's part of the charm of the movie, and that's part of the charm of her performance.
Yeah.
So, one of the favorite critics on the show, Jim Sheldon, film critic for the Porno Rag, the Hollywood Press.
Some of the finest criticism in the history of criticism.
He writes, let's not go crazy. All right. Well, I like him.
Only when you said porno rag, I had to take it to the extreme.
Yeah. In 1978, in Los Angeles, he reviewed Dirty Hands. Now, on these mini reviews, most of it is him describing the plot. So I just read the top and the bottom. Okay. The Pickford Theater has reopened with 1975's Claude Chabrol's marital murder meller that's more laughs than chills due to a totally unsympathetic principles and, believe it or don't, mechanical plot machinations. And then after he mentions Claude Chabrol, he has in parentheticals, France's Hitchcockian ripoff artist. Occasionally good.
Occasionally good.
And then going down to the bottom, before it all ends, there's a real death, a real rape, and a real non-suspension of disbelief. Romy's firm kraut bod and Rod's firm hammy acting give the film a lift. But the piece is too silly. See?
Now, he seems to be upset that there's like a little bit of comedy in the middle of the movie, but that genre, which I'm assuming he's talking about Jean Rochefort, but that is what makes the movie wonderful, actually, is that you have that moment.
Gala.
Quentin Roger, you have stumped me this time. Unfortunately, I am unable to find this movie streaming anywhere. I think for a brief point in time it was on Mubi. So I'm hoping that by the time that this podcast is coming out, for all of you out there in podcast land, that this movie is widely available because it sounds like a blast.
It was available on what?
Mubi.
Mubi. M-U-B-I.
Mubi.com. Mubi, they only show movies for a short window of time. So they might license a film to show on their service for 30 days, maybe 60 days. And then there's a slight overlap, but the idea behind Mubi is, it's not like there's an algorithm giving you 10,000 things and suggesting you something. They've got like 50 movies at any given time that are carefully curated. And so somebody at some point wisely carefully curated this film.
Yes, so I have picked up a DVD from Barnes & Noble for $20, but trying to find the VHS tape of this led me down a little bit of an interesting rabbit hole. So I cannot find a VHS tape like yours. I cannot find a non-European VHS tape on eBay of Dirty Hands.
Because anybody who's lucky enough to own the Wizard Video isn't going to sell it on fucking eBay.
Exactly. But, so I found a few French ones, but it's like 60 euros, and I'm trying to not spend that much on a French VHS tape that I cannot play. Well, I stumbled upon a VHS tape from the UK for $1.70 that says it's a promotional copy. So they say that there are promotional ads in the middle of the VHS, and I am not sure if it's a bootleg or what's going on there. But
Well, no, there were such thing as promotional copies that they would send to video stores or retailers and everything, just so that they can have it and look at. Usually, it's not anything in the middle. It just usually it has a bunch of sell-through shit on the front, and then you watch the movie so you can buy it. But then but from time to time, it'll say, this is a promotional copy. Don't rent it out. If they're renting it, let us know.
So I couldn't resist buying my promotional copy of this movie for $1.70.
Is it the French version or is it the English language version, June?
It must be the French version because it has English subtitles apparently.
Well, then it's for sure the French version.
I mean, I'm guessing it is because or else it just has English subtitles.
Yeah,
so we'll see. But so
it's
when
the closed caption version.
So yours will be called Les Innocents au Mensal.
Yes, but when I get my $1.70 VHS tape, I will watch it, and hopefully I'll be able to watch it, and I will report back on what the heck it is.
No, it was very entertaining. I was really looking for. I'd known about this box forever and ever and ever, and this was really, really entertaining. And like I said, this, as opposed to some of these other movies we've talked about, this is one, as I'm talking about it, the more I'm liking it as we talk.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I don't care for the last 20 minutes except for the final end, but I've now kind of forgiven the movie because I enjoyed it so much before that.
That's how I feel. And also coming off of Illustrated Man and then just getting more Rod Steiger, I'll take him in any quantity. And so it was so pleasurable to get it. And then kind of stumbling into this great performance by Jean Rochefort.
No.
By the time we got to the end and,
characters are showing up who are supposed to be dead, and everybody's got a gun and everybody else. Yeah.
It went the way that it went, as you said. There was enough there that I was carried through. I enjoyed this and love it way more than I like Basic Instinct or anything.
And like I said, compared to the other Chabrol, look, I've never compared to a lot of the other Chabrol thrillers. I just think it has more punch. It just has more teeth. It has more knuckle power.
This definitely makes me want to seek out Pleasure Party and Death Right or whatever their original titles were, because I want to know what was going on with Chabrol that year. Like, I watched this movie and I think, okay, who in this movie is Claude Chabrol? Which is always my question. Who is the director? And I'm thinking he must be Rod Steiger. He's Rod Steiger. He's like at least emotionally. I mean, he also wrote this movie, correct?
I don't know.
I think he wrote this film as well. And they all take place it seems like they all take place in the South.
Well, France. If he's doing that, he's doing a full Joseph von Sternberg, all right, where the cuckolded masochist, right, is the director character.
Yeah, well, exactly. The director character. And, the other one is about swinging in the south of France and that kind of going wrong.
Well, having said that,
this was 1975.
Well, none of those titles actually sound that interesting. However, I'll watch a Claude Chabrol movie starring Franco Nero and Jean Rochefort.
Yeah, that sounds amazing.
Yeah, that sounds really good.
Yeah.
So can I ask you guys, which Rod Steiger performance did you prefer?
Well, I have to go with The Illustrated Man. I would actually say The Illustrated Man, at least in the first 20 minutes, is even better written. In Dirty Hands, he's having to do a lot of heavy lifting that they're putting on his character that he doesn't really deserve, but he's still pulling it off.
He also has to play a somewhat passive character, whereas he is so terrifyingly virile.
Well, okay.
In Illustrated Man.
Okay, yeah. That's like saying somebody's a bottom. Yeah, but he's a bossy bottom, all right? He takes passivity to gregarious heights.
Created by Satan to prey on the living, it feeds on your most secret desires and hidden fears. Dormant for centuries, its time has finally come. Again. Demonoid, Messenger of Death. Starring Samantha Eggar and Stuart Whitman. How can they kill what's already dead? Demonoid. Rated R, under 17, not admitted without parent.
Demonoid, with Co-Hit the Brood, will be playing August 31st and September 1st on glorious 35mm film at the New Beverly Cinema, 7165 Beverly Boulevard, Los Angeles, California. For further information, go to thenewbev.com. The New Beverly Cinema, always on film.
So the third film, coming after our two Rod Steiger powerhouse performances.
Yeah, the monkey in the middle.
Yeah, is a Mexican/American/international production, but basically made out of Mexico. A horror film called Demonoid.
Demonoid.
Directed by Alfredo Zacarias, who, like Rene Cardona Jr., has directed a whole lot of Mexican horror films and exploitation movies that have actually made their way to these shores.
Sure, he directed all those Capulina movies.
Yeah, and he also directed a Swarm ripoff called The Bees.
Yeah,
he directed an interesting Mexican Western that got released in America called The Bandits with Robert Conrad and Jan Michael Vincent. I saw Demonoid when it came out theatrically at the Tower Theater in downtown Los Angeles, and I had a blast then, but I like it even more now, frankly, to say. I think I took it a little for granted back then. There's stuff like this playing all the time back then. It was easy to take it for granted. Now I look at something like this and I really, really, really appreciate it. I realize I was jaded back then.
I
am not jaded anymore.
Yeah.
Roger, why don't you read the back of the box?
Well, this is a beautiful media home entertainment box. One of their, they have a catalog title style, but it's just great.
No, that box, not only that box great, I mean, I would love to have that original artwork.
Well, yeah, the poster is fantastic with its kind of legend-like demon.
And by the way, I will say something about that poster. That poster is fantastic, and the movie lives up to the poster.
100%. 100%. Demonoid, starring Samantha Eggar, Stuart Whitman. This is a horrifying tale of demonic possession. While mining deep in the interior of their silver mine, Jennifer Baines, Samantha Eggar, and her husband, Mark, Roy, Cameron, Jensen discover an ancient temple of satanic worship. They remove a silver coffer in the shape of a left hand to find it contains only dust. Soon after their discovery, Mark and Jennifer's lives change for the worse. Their marriage breaks up and Mark heads to Las Vegas to take up with the gambling crowd. He's possessed by the Demonoid. Jennifer turns to Father Cunningham, Stuart Whitman, for help, and the two of them attempt to cast off the spell of the Demonoid hand as it continues to possess those who come into contact with it. This movie is in color. This movie is 85 sleek and slender minutes long. 1980.
That synopsis is strangely detailed and also leaves a ton out at the exact same time.
It feels weirdly wrong also in some
Yeah. Oh, he just goes to Vegas? They don't talk about all the people he murdered when he was in Mexico?
No, but they do mention their marriage breaks up.
Yeah, he's like, and it actually doesn't break up. He just kills all the miners and leaves, all right? It's not like they had a marital spat.
He entombs them in the mine. He collapses the mine on them.
He forces them into.
First of all, I just want to say right off the top, this is my favorite movie of this little batch.
Mine too.
This was a great find. This movie, I have
been waiting for the third exploitation movie to beat all the other ones, and this is the show it happened.
I expected so little, and I got so much more.
Demonoid just doesn't stop. It doesn't fucking stop. It doesn't waste a minute. It doesn't waste a frame. Yep. It doesn't waste a scene.
No, it doesn't. It moves. It moves really fast.
And it's not even though it's got a standard story of it's kind of they put them together. It's a crawling hand movie and a demon possession movie, and they kind of put them together, and that follows the structure. And just, okay, well, I guess it's just going to be a crawling hand movie. Okay, I got that. But then in the middle, then they don't change the mythology. The mythology gets deeper.
Yeah, they introduce a new mechanism that allows it to daisy chain further through the movie.
And then all of a sudden, now the second half of the movie has it's not a different story, but it's a more complex story.
Yeah.
And by the way, after watching stuff like The Keep and all and The Relic and all the stuff we've watched, to watch a movie with a supernatural reason for why all this is happening and with a mythology built around it, that one, it answers all of our questions.
Yeah.
We are not asking any dumb questions about what's going on. And once they explain it to it, they live up to it all the way, and you can follow it from the beginning to the end. That kind of clarity after the stuff we've watched is a blessing. The film is sick as fuck. It is nasty. It's dirty. It's got a dirty mind.
But it's also fun.
Oh no, it's
fun.
Really fun.
It's never dirty in that filthy way that makes you kind of regret that you went there.
When I say that, I mean it as a positive.
I know. I'm just clarifying for anybody who.
It's gruesome. It's got a sense of grotesque. It's got a sense of the perverse.
Yeah.
But the most important thing about it is there's no comedy in it. I mean, there's a little bit of unintentional comedy, but there's no real comedy in it. And that's one of the things that I really like about most Mexican horror films in general.
They take it seriously.
As Jim Shelton says, the Mexicans take their tacky horror seriously. Yeah. I mean, no, and the seriousness of the intention of all the actors, the seriousness of the intention of the director and the scenario was a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
And again, it's moving. And then you add on top of that, Samantha Eggar, who is a fantastic actress. And this was during the time that she was doing a lot of exploitation movies, and she's I've never seen her give a bad performance in an exploitation movie. She elevates
this movie. It can't be like...
It can't be emphasized enough
it can't be.
How she classes up the production.
Well,
and it's also just gratifying that she's taking the movie so seriously.
Well,
she makes you take the movie seriously.
Oh, completely. She's a total Hollywood pro. And even when there's moments where physically it doesn't work, she sells it. Like, for example, there's a moment in the church, I think when there's a cage or something and that she's not supposed to be able to get to them.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay, she could just climb over it or around it. She figures out how to physically sell it. She's given 100% to make this movie as great as it can possibly be.
Now, I like Stuart Whitman, but I remember to him thinking that he was just kind of a worn out performance for him. So I remember I even said that when he came on. I was wrong. He's actually quite good in the movie.
Well, the whole thing about this demon hand, that once it kind of possesses you and kind of becomes you, and then like you become possessed, it draws out your sin, whatever that is. With her husband, the first thing he does, once possessed, is he's in Vegas and he's using that demon hand to do, I don't play craps, but snake eyes every time, whatever.
No, he gets like 27 snake eyes in a row.
Yeah, like he's.
Oh, by the way, we have to mention for a second, the guy playing her husband is a character actor you've all seen. If you watch action movies from the 70s, he's in all the Eastwood movies, he's in all the Bronson movies. He's that schlumpy detective in Chinatown that Jack Nicholson beats the shit out of.
Yeah.
He's like, his name is Roy Jensen. Here he's billed as Roy Cameron Jensen. All right. But the thing is, I actually think Roy Jensen and Samantha Eggar made a really cool couple. I like them.
Kind of a weirdly realistic couple, too. I mean, even though she is obviously way too good looking for him.
Well, no, but,
but he owns a silver mine.
Well, no, I'm not going to say that. I'm going to say, he's so masculine, I bought it.
Well, he is.
There's a masculine quality about it.
He's like
that kind of masculinity can get a Samantha Eggar.
He's like my
especially
dad.
If you own a fucking silver mine.
He's like my dad.
Yeah.
My dad. I mean, I told you that watching this because, I grew up in Brazil.
Well, you haven't
Mexico.
told the audience that. Tell them about the beginning of the film.
So, I find out this movie takes place in Guanajuato, and I immediately get excited because I, as a kid, lived in Mexico and other places, and Guanajuato is one of them. And my dad is a mining engineer, and so
your dad is Roy Jensen.
So my dad is Roy Jensen in this movie. So I'm watching, and I'm like, okay, well, this is Guanajuato. I know Guanajuato. I used to be like, as a little kid, I would be there in with the mummies before they weren't even in cabinets back then.
Yeah, okay, but that's the thing about the movie was the fact is I'm watching it with Roger, and then he's like, oh, I lived in Guanajuato, all right? And then it's like, oh, apparently this was in Roger's hometown. And he's like, oh, yeah, well, naturally. Then they go to the museum where they have the Guanajuato mummies. Well, yeah, naturally, of course, the Guanajuato mummies. Right? Everybody knows about the Guanajuato mummies.
Yeah, so I grew up around them, and so it was like watching it for me was it was like watching what was the other the Borman film the Emerald Forest.
Emerald Forest, yeah,
which I also lived. Having grown up partly in the Amazon with my dad as a mining engineer, and so these two movies are like, whoa.
That's the Roger growing up double feature, Emerald Forest and Demonoid.
That's the key to understanding me.
Also, I have to say, the film has very well done both special effects and gore effects. They don't have a ton of money to pull them off.
But they way pull them off.
I will actually go so far as to say I think this is the best crawling hand I've ever seen in any movie.
That moment where there's the full body burn going on, because the hand wants to get rid of the body. It's like, fuck this body. And so it's like, next thing you know, the guy's on fire. And I'm thinking, oh my God, this is like one of our leads. I couldn't believe it. When it falls into the dirt, the hand digs itself into the sand to protect itself. That is so inventive.
Everything we're saying is pointing out how clever this movie is.
This movie is clever from beginning to end. Boom, boom. It's so much fun to watch.
And not only that, one, they're pulling off the crawling hand stuff really terrific. But it's not just that they've come up with just magnificent makeup effects. Some of it is just actually directorial cleverness. The way he shot it. He figured out the exact angle to sell the gag.
Yeah.
And that's directing, man. That's what directing is all about, especially when it comes to horror films, especially when it comes to dealing with fantasy.
Well, the great Alfredo Zacarias has a massive. He's going back into the 50s.
No. If you look
little
up
horror movies.
No, if you look up him, you look up Rene Cardona Jr., you're going to see 80 movies. You know?
Oh yeah, I looked it up, and so based on this movie, I started looking through his work, and I started seeing what are all these Capulina movies. And I started looking through, and Capulina is this Mexican comedian, Gaspar Hanen, who was sort of kind of an innocent kind of style of comedy. Looking at this movie made me think, I want to see this guy's comedies. And one of them is Capulina versus the Mummies, The Terror of Guanajuato.
Oh, okay.
And so he's back in Guanajuato with the mummies.
Oh,
and
now
so,
that I would like to see, actually.
So I want to
say,
see that
yeah.
Capulina movie in particular. But there's a whole ton of them. There's, Capulina Speedy Gonzales. There's Capulina Corazon de Leon. There's which was the first one that he wrote, actually.
No, but I want to see a few more of the ones that actually got released in America. And I think there's about there's at least 4 or something.
Can we talk for a minute about the very opening of this movie, which I think is like...
Oh, it's fantastic.
Which I was like, this is like a Roger opening. This is like what I want all my movies to be like.
It's completely Roger opening. I'll describe the ending, the beginning. All right, so it starts off, obviously, a long time ago. And so this woman... You don't quite know she's a woman at first. She's in like these monk robes and she's being chased by these guys and she's got a sword, and it becomes very clear that she's got superhuman strength and she's fucking these guys up. And then a bunch of them get on top of her and they pin her against the wall. And as they pin her against the wall, the monk robe opens up and her boobs fall out. And it's just like
awesome.
It's a great boob shot. I mean, it's just a terrific boob shot. Yeah. And then they hold her against the cave wall and they cut her fucking hand off.
And it was shocking.
They cut her fucking hand off. Then they take a knife and they stab the hand. And then they
before it can climb away.
Yeah. And they stab it before it can climb away. And then they put it in this little hand coffin. And that little hand coffin is the best prop of this entire episode.
Yeah, we actually were saying,
if I could own one prop, all right, for my cinema museum, it would be the demon coffin. It would be the Demonoid hand coffin.
Yeah, the Mana Sinistra hand.
Now, we haven't really described the plot, and media did a very bad job of describing the plot. But I think at this point, we've expressed our enthusiasm enough that if you're still there and we haven't described the plot, then just watch it. All right. But one of the things that was surprising about the movie, one, it starts off in Mexico. And like you said, not just Mexico, but where's the place again?
Guanajuato.
Okay. Then one of the lead characters goes to Vegas, the Sands Hotel in particular. So now a whole section's happening in Vegas.
Yeah, which I was totally like, whoa, suddenly we're in Vegas.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden... Suddenly we're in Inglewood, California. And then the rest of the movie takes place in Inglewood. Yeah. This movie is fantastic. Watu? The Sands Hotel in 1979? Yeah. And Inglewood? I mean, I'm surprised they didn't go to the fucking Forum.
Yeah. And as this hand is making its way from person to person and kind of possessing them, and then their hand becomes the hand.
Yeah, well, while we're not going to describe the plot, there's a little bit that's vaguely similar to, to The Hidden or something, about the way things just keep like moving from.
Yeah, it's like a daisy chain. It's like
character to character, but it has its own mythology going on that I don't want to spoil.
Well, one of the things that I love about it is that the hand, the sinister hand, or the Manos Sinistra, which in Latin means left hand.
Well, then actually, the original name of the movie was The Devil's Hand.
Well, there you go.
They keep calling it The Devil's Hand throughout the whole thing. You can tell that was supposed to be the title.
The thing about this hand, though, is it's completely an equal opportunity hand. Mm-hmm. This hand finds its way onto women. This hand finds its way onto men. It finds its way onto that black cop. It's like this hand is...
How great is that moment? But one of the best lines is when the black cop has been possessed by the hand and he wants to cut it off. And he goes to the doctor and he points a gun at the doctor. You cut this fucking thing off. So the guy starts setting up some anesthesia. He goes, no needles, no anesthesia, just cut.
You just cut it off in front of her. And
you're like, and I'm like, oh my God.
Is this when she's tied down, like Samantha Eggers is tied down?
No, she's just in the hospital. She's just in the doctor just going,
yeah, when they're cutting off the hand in front of her and she's like right next to it. It's like her expression with her big eyes. It's just so like, and I love when she takes the priest out and she's like, to see the grave of, I think of her husband. And he's like, oh, and they get there and it's like, oh, it's been desecrated. She's like, but Father, it's more than desecrated.
Yeah.
It looks as though the grave has been blown open from within.
Yeah, just look at the pieces of wood. It's exploded from the inside.
Yeah,
all right?
she's like,
people didn't break into this. Something broke out.
I just love the way that she explains everything.
Well, I will admit, she's figuring out everything. She's figuring out the whole, what the hand's motivation is. She's figuring out a simple look at the grave. I mean, she should have her own detective show.
And then she's trying to convince him, and he's like, well, no, it's more likely just, desecration. It's like, but look at it.
Yeah,
she's like,
just
look at it.
Yeah.
And she's so convincing and fun, running around on her high heels and like lifting her big 70s glasses, wearing a Halston, gown in one moment, and I was great. I loved her in this. It made me like a big fan of hers. I was, I had seen a few movies that she was in, but I never really thought about her that much. And then this, I was like, wow, they brought her in. Good call. There's a lot of, professional actors in this, but it's mostly an international exploitation film production. But she comes in and just she kills it, grounds it, kills it.
It's probably only like 4 movies after she did The Brood or something.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, which I love also.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, I think the last film she had released theatrically by this point was The Exterminator. I like this one better than The Exterminator. I've seen The Exterminator recently. This delivers more than Exterminator
like a
does.
Female Roger Moore or something. She's just so charming.
That's a good way to say it. Gala.
Hey guys, well, first off, I have to say it's so funny, Dad, that you said that, because that's exactly what Ever said, my younger brother, when we were watching that. Yeah, he's like, this is a female Roger Moore. And I didn't make that connection at all.
Because she's charming. She's super charming. She's like, and with that accent.
I'm so glad to hear that you guys love this movie, because I loved this movie too. And I was kind of waiting to see, I knew Roger was going to love it. I wasn't sure Quentin. I thought Quentin's going to like this, but I wasn't quite sure. So I'm so glad to hear you guys liked it. Because whenever Quentin gives me the list of movies to watch, I always go to my mom and I say, Mom, which one of these would you like to watch? And my mom picked Demonoid.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. She was like, I don't know if I want to see The Illustrated Man.
She's been ranting about Demonoid.
My mom loved Demonoid. I watched it with my mom and my younger brother over dinner, and we had the most fun time. The transfer on Amazon for rent is beautiful. It is a wonderful transfer. So anyone out there, go watch it right now. It's for rent on Amazon. My mom, I love this movie. My mom loved it. She won't stop talking about it.
Yeah.
She was like looking at the screen and she would go, ah! And she would cover her eyes, and I would see her peeking through. Like she couldn't look away. This movie is creepy.
Well, the way that hand moves around, it's a performance.
Oh, that's one of the things I wanted to add. When we were watching the movie, at a certain point, in the last 30 minutes, right alongside Samantha Eggar, right alongside Stuart Whitman, the hand is a character. I like the hand.
Yeah, it's like Nick Castle is the puppeteering.
Yeah, I like the hand. It's a character. And it even kind of starts coming across as a character at a certain. It actually has a touch of a personality.
Yeah.
And it makes it.
It has an intention.
Yeah, and a compelling villain kind of in the story where there is no villain besides the devil.
And the way it moves is just it's shocking when it suddenly.
That's like a fucking rat.
Yeah.
Yeah, the effects are amazing, and I'm watching and I'm thinking, man, if this was made today, the CGI would be terrible. First, I love when it's ash and it forms back into a hand.
Yeah, me too.
That was so cool. It was amazing sculpture.
And again, they're not explaining it to us. We're just kind of figuring out the mythology of it. Oh, okay, after it does this, it does that.
Yeah.
And when it's jumping through the air, it is so terrifying. And I love when they're in the church and all of a sudden the doors are locked, and my brother was like, how did it lock the door so fast? I'm like, I don't know. It can jump around. It's a hand. It can go wherever it wants.
That hand does what it wants to do.
Yeah, that hand can go lock a door if it wants. This movie feels expensive. I don't know what the budget was on it, but
okay. I'll add to that though. Okay, not that I have any inside information, but the situation is, for the Mexican film industry, this probably was an expensive movie. One of the things that you'll notice when you see especially Mexican movies or Spanish movies or German movies, they're just released as an exploitation movie out here. If you actually look up Mexico or Spain that year, those actually might have been one of the bigger movies that they made at that during that time. The Rene Cardona Jr. movie, Tintorera. Okay. In Mexico, That was one of the biggest movies of the year. And it's 2.5 hours long, the Mexican version. But everybody in Mexico knows Tantarara. They cut it down to 90 minutes, and I saw it at the Carson Twin Cinema. But my point being, though, is for a film made for the Mexican film industry, this probably actually had a couple of pesos.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it feels like it does. Like when I watched it, I'm thinking, wow, this, like, as you said, you're in Mexico.
Well, they've taken it to the Sands Hotel. They've taken it to
Sands
Inglewood.
Hotel.
We're all over.
I'm everywhere. And
It's an
also,
epic.
If it has a little bit of money, that means they're probably working with the best technicians in Mexico at that point.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and also I love that you were with kind of completely different characters by the end of the movie.
Yeah,
You're just going through people and everyone feels fully fleshed out.
Mm-hmm.
I don't miss anything anywhere. And the ending, without giving it away, you could think, okay, an ending like this could be cliche or it could feel kind of like I feel betrayed or whatever. The ending is so cool of this movie.
Yeah.
It's awesome. I love it.
Well, the
gore in this movie is just amazing.
Oh, when they crush the head of somebody, the hand crushes somebody's head, it is intense.
The ending doesn't seem cheap in this movie because this movie's had a nasty spirit all the way along.
Exactly.
Evil will always win in this movie.
Exactly. And my favorite part of the movie, because we talked about the coffin that the hand gets put into, I love when she's in the motel and the hand shows up and she goes to get the coffin and she looks and the hand has gone and just destroyed the coffin.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I just love that because the hand's like, you're not putting me back in there. Hell no, I'm not going back in there. Yeah. I thought it was a funny character moment for the hand. I loved it.
Hey, funny character moment for the hand. No.
Yeah, and also I love that train sequence.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Where the hand gets chopped
off.
Oh,
unbelievable sequence.
It's an unbelievable sequence. The stunts
on
are
a low-budget movie.
On a low-budget movie, the stunts are amazing. And then all of a sudden, the hand just kind of crawls and then latches onto the train.
Oh, I know. That was great.
It was amazing. And you never know where the hand's going to be.
And by the way, that shot also, I mean, as I was watching it, I was, of course, naturally thinking a little bit about Evil Dead and and the hand running around in that. And I was thinking, I wonder if, this was some kind of influence on that because the energy is there, like that.
Well, I think Oliver Stone's The Hand came out like the year before,
right.
And that's a big budget version of something like that. I mean, but before there was like The Crawling Hand, The Beast with Five Fingers,
the many hand movies,
the genre,
the subgenre.
It's actually a subgenre unto itself.
Yeah,
yeah. But this amazing movie, everyone should go watch it. I think it might even be one of my favorite movies that we've talked about.
I would say, pound for pound, it's the best movie we've talked about. You know what I mean by that? For its fighting weight.
For its caliber and its fighting weight.
For its fighting weight.
Its class. It's coming out on top.
I'm not putting it down. I just mean,
this movie's made by a master filmmaker.
In its weight class, it can't be beat.
For me, it's winning the Battle Royale right now. So
it's taking on all comers.
Everyone, the hand wins all. Demonoid, Messenger of Death is available now on Tubi TV US for free with ads. But if ads are a problem for you or you're not in the USA, you can catch Demonoid for free on the Internet Archive. It's in great quality, but has hard-coded subtitles in Spanish. So if that's also a problem for you, you can fork over some dough to rent it on Amazon. My VHS tape cost me $19.95, and I have a Video Treasures copy. So once I get it into my hand...
You've got shit, all right? We've got this great media SP version. You've got the LP.
But you know what's funny?
Light ass.
But you know what's funny?
But it's there.
Is that my box is still red.
No, I've got the Video Treasures box too.
Yeah, but I'm just saying because I
have 2 copies of Demonoid, and I have the Video Treasure
there was
one.
this beautiful Japanese copy available, and I was staring and I was thinking, Demonoid, somebody will even have to go pick that up. But I will say all the boxes on eBay that are red are turning white.
Oh, right.
I don't know what is up with that, but they are all
Quentin
turning white.
keeps his in the dark, so it's not. He doesn't leave his sitting on the dashboard of his car.
Yeah, you're gonna put it in the store right by the sun rays window for the next 10 years.
Yeah, the horror sci-fi section was in the sun.
Yeah,
all the tapes are white.
If anybody out there has a line on the original artwork for the Demonoid poster, get in touch with us.
Yeah, and this movie really, it has all the promise of Exorcist 2 with visually, those kind of moments are, They're striking. They're fantastic.
How dare you bring up something so disjointed?
Well, that's why I said The Promise.
Yes, okay,
of
right.
Exorcist 2. I happen to like
I know.
Exorcist 2, but not as much as Demonoid.
Everyone go watch it.
Glad to hear. Okay, well, hey, before we wrap that up there, it just so turns out that the magnificent critic Jim Sheldon of the porno rag Hollywood Press also reviewed Demonoid. And he said, Demonoid, originally The Devil's Hand, is an American-Mexican variation on The Hand. See my May 1st review, C+. Of such relentless, mechanical, streamlined, 78 minutes, ruthlessness that it almost possesses a certain counter-charm. It's nothing more than a procession of victims with evil triumphant. And then it goes down to the whole thing, and then at the end, the mechanical hand or clever direction is convincing, as are the maulings and the mutilations. Resolutely nasty. D. But, hold it now, if you understand where Jim Sheldon's coming from, for him to give Demonoid a D, that means he enjoyed it. That means, okay, here's this piece of shit. I had to watch it. And you know what? I watch a lot of pieces of shit every fucking week. This piece of shit, I didn't mind watching.
He might have meant file it under D.
No,
for Demonoid.
No. D. D.
For me, that's S+, by the way.
Yeah. But the thing is, though, no, him giving Demonoid a D is, if you understand his rating system, that, like I said, he's saying enjoyable piece of shit.
Yeah.
There's a lot of those
Best
out there.
in class.
Yeah.
How about some awards? Should we hand out some awards?
Best film of the show.
Well,
we just already said it, but go ahead.
I'm just going to go with Demonoid.
Demonoid.
At first, I was like thinking to myself, okay, if this was Dimension Films, it would be Demonoid. If it was Miramax, we would go with Dirty Hands. But no, it's Demonoid. That is the best movie.
Frankly, it's one of the only movies we've watched on this thing that I don't have a problem with the third act, or I don't have a problem with the second. I don't have a problem at all.
We can give it best pacing as well.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I'll give it best screenplay. All right. Okay, we're all in agreement in Demonoid.
Yes.
Okay, best actor. Well, okay, it's kind of obviously Rod Steiger.
Okay, yes, obviously. But does the hand in Demonoid count as an actor?
I think supporting actor.
Yeah, that would be supporting. Although, and okay, if we're going to jump it right into supporting actor, I'm going to fight for Jean Rochefort in Dirty Hands, even though The Dirtiest Hand, the Demonoid, is also an excellent supporting
I don't
actor.
think we'll call it acting. I think we'll call it special effects. All right?
Okay, I'll concede this time.
Okay. Even though it is a character, but that's not acting, but it's a character. Okay, so are we all in agreement that Rod Steiger is the best actor of this episode?
Yes.
If I had seen it, I probably would agree.
Yeah.
Okay, best actress.
Oh, I'm going to go with Samantha Eggar.
Okay.
Eggers, because one, I think she elevates the movie. Mm-hmm. Two, I found her absolutely delightful to watch.
So you're officially giving Samantha Eggar the nod over Romy Schneider.
Absolutely. And I think Romy Schneider is, listen, I love Romy Schneider. And I think I mentioned Max and the Junkman, which I recommend also to anybody to see. And I think Romy Schneider is just fantastic. But I found her, to be honest, she does one thing really well in this movie, but that's all she does. Mm-hmm. Which is to play that kind of ambivalence all the way through, which is not the easiest thing to do. I'm not saying it's like that she's giving.
No, that's actually part of the
bad performance.
That
she's giving a great
is one of the things I'm kind of championing.
Her opaqueness that you called it. Yeah, that is fantastic. I just loved watching Samantha Eggers throughout Demonoid.
Well,
she made me want to just follow her.
I am a huge Samantha Eggar fan, so the fact that I've turned you on to her
totally
along with Roberta Collins makes me very happy. Gala.
I did not have the chance to see Dirty Hands, so I'm also going to have to go with Samantha Eggers because women are kind of slim pickings this episode. So Samantha Eggers all the way.
Actually, more than the episode before last.
Even more so.
Penelope Ann Miller was the only gay man. I could easily throw it to Samantha Eggar. I'm just to break it up a little bit. I'm going to give a little love to Romy Schneider. All right. I think you could go either way. If I was just going for entertainment, I would go for Samantha Eggar. I actually think No, actually, I don't agree with this. I don't agree that she has the harder part. I actually think that Samantha Eggar definitely has the harder part. To make this madness seem halfway plausible, all right, is...
I just love seeing her running around in a tight skirt,
Never... Okay, you know what? I'm taking it back. Samantha Eggar, she just...
Yes, Samantha Eggers.
She commits. She makes us... Not only does she class up the movie, she makes us take it seriously.
Yeah. I'm going to throw out best economical use of an exterior location to Illustrated Man because they somehow used that Thousand Oaks location or wherever they shot it looked like.
I mean, that stream?
That stream. They shot everything there. They shot the circus tent in the end. They shot,
really? Oh, wow.
They shot the African veldt there. They shot the Wisconsin
I'm
with the
sure
witch's house.
I'm sure they just went to Lion Country Safari and shot the African veldt.
I think that they just stayed at that location and brought the lions to them. It's LA. You can get lions. You can get a zebra if you want.
All the animals are from Africa, USA.
Yeah.
That was
It's all set up for them to go to Africa, Lion Country Safari and shoot that. Why would they bring a bunch of lions to that river? Best supporting actor.
Oh, well,
you already said it.
I said Jean Rochefort is who I'm going
and
for.
I absolutely agree. If I was picking a second choice, it would be Roy Jensen because I really liked him in the movie.
And I'm going to also throw out best cinematography on Dirty Hands.
Yes,
which is sleek and beautiful. It's
I'm serious. I think it's the physical best photography as far as what exists in the print when they got through with it. It's the best looking print that we've watched of all the films we've watched.
Jean Rabier, the guy who shot this, who also did the cinematography for Umbrellas of Cherbourg, Parapluie de Cherbourg, which, for my money, is easily one of the most beautiful French movies ever shot. He here doesn't do the same thing. Here he brings a much more slick, modern thriller look. It's just lovely, beautiful to watch.
I don't think there really is a supporting actress in this one.
I don't think so, but I'm going to have to give it to one of the hands. I know one of those hands belongs to a woman.
Yeah. I give best supporting actress to the boob girl at the beginning.
Yeah, boob girl at the beginning gets it. I will say I didn't get to see Dirty Hands, so I'm going to have to trust you on best cinematography. But I will say The Illustrated Man in the first 20 minutes in beautiful Technicolor. It is gorgeously shot.
Yeah, I agree.
And they have some amazing whip pans where it's it's on the ground and it whip pans up when he sees the dog. And
the dog stuff.
No, it has good stuff like that.
The dog deserves an award. Best dog performance.
Yeah, well, no, best animal performance.
Best animal reaction.
Absolutely, best animal. But good,
Did you like those animal reactions?
Yes, because they were good. Because they were good.
These weren't Moonraker
animals. Pigeons.
It's not like an otter closing its eyes. A beaver doing a double take. All right, what was his name? The Peaky or
Peak, as in Pekingese.
As in Pekingese. But it's a Pomeranian. It's a boom.
He's a
like
bum.
me and him. We're both two booms.
I love when by the way, when that dog grabs the snake, that he's just killed that garter snake.
Yeah.
And he's like, let the dog eat the snake. He's gonna go eat the snake. Let the dog eat the snake.
Yeah,
it's such a good moment. It's so funny.
Ain't nothing good about a snake.
I see a snake, I kill it. He's like, no, it's a snake. It's a snake. What do you don't know about a snake? You see a snake, I kill it. I think I have to give best director to Alfredo Zacarias.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, in agreement.
For sure.
Because the hand is just...
Yeah,
even Jim Shelton sees the directorial touch of the hand.
Yeah, he delivers.
Best scene. Okay, I got to say the opening 20 minutes of Illustrated Man. I'm gonna go with. I think that counts as one scene.
Yeah.
Sequence.
I'm gonna go with the full body burn at the car in Demonoid.
That's a moment. I think that's a moment. That's not a scene.
That sequence where he lights himself on fire and the hand buries itself in the
moment. So the scene is somewhere in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to pick a whole scene?
Well,
not just a moment?
What's that problem? I mean, I'm just like...
That's not a scene?
There's actually movies that have scenes, all right? That's a moment.
Okay.
I think mine might be the plastic surgery scene in Demonoid because I really like the black police officer.
I like that guy too.
I think he's a really fun actor that comes in. And And I really just like Samantha Eggar's performance there. And I love also that the doctor gets inhabited by the hand also.
Yeah.
And so we get to see the hand run around doing everything.
Right. And look, as much as I like the opening, Illustrated Man, number 2 might be the opening of Demonoid. The boob girl, all right, getting her hand cut off.
It's such a good opening that you're just like, wow.
I actually thought about it. I'm gonna go with Jean Rochefort and
there
his
you
whole
go.
his scene
That's the real number 2
defending
for me.
Romy Schneider.
No.
That was probably that scene could stand on its own.
That was
and
probably,
you could just take that scene and show it.
That was probably the scene I enjoyed the most because I know what I'm going to get when it comes to the opening 20 minutes of The Illustrated Man. I was not prepared for a scene as good as the Jean Rochefort scene to come in the middle of the movie and just sweep us away.
Yeah, it's outstanding.
This was a good
week for me. I really enjoyed all. To be honest, I enjoyed all of these movies.
Yeah, me too.
So,
me too. Okay, best moment was the burn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with the burn, with pushing the hand. The hand going underground.
And when I say best moment, it can be best. It can be prettiest shot. It can be best visual. It can be it's a moment.
I still think I'm gonna have to go with Demonoid, to be honest. I just love Demonoid.
Go ahead.
But my favorite moment was when the hand turned from ash to a hand.
Okay.
I think it was just a really beautiful moment that I kind of wasn't expecting it to look that good.
Mm-hmm.
And I could almost go for the kite falling on Romy Schneider's derriere. That was a really great way to set up a movie.
That is
to begin the movie with that.
If we're gonna best moment also means best visual moment, whatever.
Yeah.
Sure. I'm gonna go with the moment of Rod Steiger lounging on the couch in full head to toe Illustrated Man guise. Just that image of him naked, lying down from head to toe with the illustrations. The physicality of the Illustrated Man is one of the things that movie did perfectly.
They pull it off.
I mean, they pull it. It's easy to take it for granted how good it looks.
And they continue it. He gets up. He walks through the house naked, not in an obvious or a way where they're trying to like hide anything. It feels very organic.
Well, he doesn't look naked because he's covered with all this shit.
Because he's covered in tattoos. But they're also
illustrations and skin illustrations.
I'm gonna tell you, when I'm walking around in these tattoos, I ain't naked. These are coming to life, and they bring up things of you. And by the way, I told you about calling them tattoos, and I don't make me tell you again. They are skin illustrations.
He is a very tense, bottled up guy.
Okay, so to Rod Steiger and all the ships to see, thank you, everybody, and we'll see you next time on the Video Archives podcast. Be kind, rewind.
Thanks, everyone.
At least rewind like halfway.
The Video Archives podcast is hosted by Quentin Tarantino and Roger Avary and produced by Josh Richmond and Gala Avary. Our engineer is Devin Torrey Bryant, and our executive producers are Colin Anderson and Natalie Mualem. This episode featured additional production by Raven Goldston. We now have Video Archives merch. Go to podswag.com to see everything we have in stock. Find out more about the show by heading to videoarchivespodcast.com. You can also find us on Twitter at Video Archives and on Instagram at Video Archives Pod. Have you ever wanted to hear Mick Garris discuss the differences between original source material and the movies they become? Or Joe Russo's favorite gateways into horror? What about author Max Brooks and how he thinks that Minecraft will literally save humanity? Join me, reporter on the beat Gala Avary, as I get to the bottom of these topics on my new show, The Gala Show. In this weekly podcast, guests from Los Angeles and beyond have 30 minutes on the clock to bring whatever topic they want to the mic. So, tune in every Thursday for a new guest with an entirely new topic. The first episode drops October 26th, available wherever you get your podcasts.